Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is my pleasure to be hosting the Water 101 live stream. My name is Stefan. We're going to be talking all about water quality, filtration systems, helping you get informed and making the right decision. Well, we've got a variety of experts, all the way from a neurosurgeon, Dr. Z, to a master plumber, the sleepy plumber, JB. Ben is also going to be helping us out with the plumbing. And then Chrissy is joining us from actually buying the product, using the product. She's got a fantastic YouTube channel that is also helping you out to do that. Maybe you'll check it out after the live stream. After the live stream, people, let's stick with this. The beautiful part about this is not only do we have this panel of experts that are going to help guide you through the various decision making on water, filtration systems, and how you should be applying this to your life, but we have a fantastic sponsor, Water Drop Filter, and they are doing a flash sale today. It truly is a flash sale. It is 30% off on their website of orders more than $300. 30% off for orders more than $300, which means you get almost $100 off. But here's the catch. You put Water 101, the title of this live stream, Water 101 at checkout is your code. And the sale ends at 9:30 p.m. tonight, which means you have about 12 hours to go. So you're going to get to do that. But throughout this entire stream, we're going to have several sections that we're going to be talking through of water quality, filtration. Like I told you, we're going to be also doing giveaways. So make sure that you're commenting, you're putting in your questions in the chat. We're going to be doing our best to address it and making sure that we're getting you all the information we possibly can. That's our big thing that we're trying to do today. Now, if all of a sudden you stump us with any kind of a question, we may direct you somewhere else. But we're trying to give you honest, good feedback about the things that you're actually going to be using throughout this entire thing. All right. With that, we are jumping right into our first section, which is all about water quality and our health. And for that, we are jumping to, well, the doctor in the room. Dr. Z is a neurosurgeon, but I am not going to be doing as good of a job of introducing everything that you do. Could you give us a little intro about what you do, and then we'll jump into some of the questions about water quality, water health?
Sure, absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you great.
All right, perfect. So you are correct. I am a neurosurgeon. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, everyone, for joining. So my job, of course, as you guys probably know, is I focus on diseases and pathology related to the central nervous system. Of course, having gone to medical school, I'm well educated on the different parts of the rest of the body as well, including all of the different organ systems and how, of course, nutrition and hydration and stuff like that can impact someone's overall health. My dad, which is interesting enough, my dad is actually a water sanitation expert and works for the government in Dubai. So he is even more qualified than I am. So that's actually what he does for a living. But personally, what I do is I treat the disease pathologies that patients tend to come in related to several different things, but among which could be issues related to poorly filtered water, I guess. So that's kind of my area of expertise. And I just kind of wanted to explain why hydration is so important, how poorly filtered water can actually affect you, and how sometimes tap water can actually be a little bit more dangerous than what we suspect. So just give me a second here because I want to share my screen.
I know they have some stuff up for you. I don't know if they're going to be changing the slides for you there.
Got it. Here, let me see if this works. It says, I see. All right. Well, we can just do it based on what you guys have, but I think it's not letting me share. Can you see me or no?
I can see you, but we have a slide up at this point.
My screen. Yeah, I think you can see my screen here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. If you want to share your own slides.
Yeah, we'll just do that. All right, so I'm going to be talking about the importance of filtered water, of course. And so as everyone probably understands, it is an essential part of maintaining appropriate health and also mental function. So it, of course, purely significantly impacts our health. And so we just wanted to be able to explore kind of the risks that are associated with unfiltered water and the benefits of drinking filtered water.
A quick point, Dr. Z. We are actually only seeing your restream, so you might need to reshare a different window because we're just, we're not seeing your actual slides.
All right. Well, I think we're going to try to have to do it in a different way because it is telling me that I need to allow the screen to share or allow the screen to record me or something. And I'm trying to do that, but I don't know if there's a way.
Can you see the slides that are currently up? Are those
I can do that. Yeah, okay. I can just go.
We'll try with that.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So, as I said, it's, of course, an essential part of life, and the purity will significantly impact a person's health. And so we need to explore the risks associated with unfiltered water, and so also talk about how filtered water is actually beneficial on top of taking unfiltered water. So let's go to the next slide, please. So health risks associated with unfiltered water. So a lot of times what you can have is obviously contamination, but if you have severe contamination, you know, we're talking about countries that are not necessarily within North America, or maybe, you know, countries that are on this part of the hemisphere. But if you go to certain parts of the world, there it can be some severe contamination of water, which can have things like bacteria, viruses, parasites, things like if you go camping, for example, if you have contaminated water in those situations as well, even in the United States, those are areas where you can have very serious and, in fact, life-threatening conditions that could potentially be fatal if someone has some unfiltered water, which can cause things like severe diarrhea, vomiting, and you can have a severe immunocompromised state, which can make you even more sick. There are viruses, parasites, and all sorts of stuff. But moreover, people that drink tap water also are exposing themselves to things like parasites sometimes, things like heavy metals, chemicals. And so those are things that people don't really think about whenever they're drinking tap water. Now, of course, I don't want to, you know, fearmonger here and say that tap water is the scariest thing in the world. It's not, because of course there are certain regulations that tap water has to pass. But I will say that overexposure for a long period of time will result in heavy metal accumulation in the body, especially with things like lead, for example. And lead, as a neurosurgeon, is something that we see very frequently, lead toxicity. And I don't want to say frequently, but we do see it. And it's one of those things where, you know, if you have a lot of lead accumulation in the body, can actually affect your nerve functions. So you start getting numbness and tingling in your fingertips and your toes and stuff like that. And sometimes that could be permanent if it's not treated. So that is something that somebody could be hospitalized for. But, you know, there are certain dangerous chemicals that could be found in tap water, but also in regular contaminated water. GI issues, as I talked about before, contaminated water can lead to things like diarrhea, vomiting. You can have abdominal cramps, a compromised state, immunocompromised state, where you can get more sick. And of course, it can impact your long-term health, and you know, being exposed to these things for a long period of time could be detrimental. Next slide, please. All right, so these are just a few of the contaminants that can be found in some of the unfiltered water. So you can have things like bacteria and viruses, and those usually come from sewage and agricultural runoff. Of course, a lot of times some of that stuff could be filtered out, but not always. It depends on the size of the actual contaminant, of whether or not it actually gets cleaned out and filtered out. And so these things could impact your GI health, and even your brain health, and your overall organ systems, including your renal system. Parasites, it usually comes from things like animal waste, and contaminated soil can lead to things like diarrhea, abdominal pain, and of course can make your hydration worse by causing you to be dehydrated, doing the opposite of what you're trying to do. So if you have too much diarrhea, you're losing way too much fluid, you're going to be severely dehydrated and what we call hypovolemic. And then in terms of heavy metals, this is what I was talking about before. Sometimes this can be a result of industrial waste, things like mining operations. And then a lot of this stuff is going to depend on where you are actually located, especially in the United States. So if you have heavy metals in the water, in your tap water, stuff like that could potentially accumulate to dangerous levels, and it can cause things like neurological damage as well as kidney issues. And lastly, you can also have things like pesticides as well, and that's usually found from agricultural practices. And so stuff like that, and also PFAS and all that kind of stuff can also cause things like hormonal disruption, and it can cause long-term impacts on someone's health down the road as well. Next slide, please. So overall, we're going to talk about the role of water in overall health and brain function. So in terms of hydration, of course, as you guys know, water is absolutely essential for cell function, things like nutrient transport, waste removal. It will regulate your body temperature, lubricate your joints, protect your organs and tissues, but specifically in terms of brain function. So as a neurosurgeon, I don't think a lot of people, I always tell people this fact because not a lot of people know it. I just made a video on this. 75% of your entire brain is made up of water. So if you think about it, I mean, not a lot of people have really held a human brain, or I guess, but when I was in medical school, we would have preserved human brains, and we would hold it, and they're heavy. It can weigh 5-6 pounds, and they're pretty dense, and majority of that is actually water. 75% of that is water. So only a quarter of what you have is actual structural tissue and cellular matter. So it's absolutely essential to make sure that you are taking in the type of hydration that is going to promote healthy brain function. And so it's absolutely essential for things like cognition, things like memory, and even impacts your mood. We all know that if you get dehydrated, sometimes that can result in things like migraines. So it's really important to make sure that you maintain appropriate hydration from that aspect. And of course, it can also impact the rest of the body as well. Things like your digestion, your skin health. It can reduce the risk of kidney stones, and it can improve athletic performance as well. Next slide, please. So the benefit of drinking filtered water instead of the unfiltered water, of course, you can have reduced contaminants. It would remove harmful contaminants, and it would promote safer consumption. And overall, it just tastes better. I've had this water drop filter for quite a while now. And honestly, I stopped buying water bottles. I don't need to get anything else anymore. I just get a nice cold glass of water, and it's very satisfying, very refreshing. So I've switched all my soft drinks and water and everything to just this water drop purifier. So it's been absolutely phenomenal. It'll enhance your hydration just because you're able to drink more of it and you're actually enjoying the taste of it. And it leads to a healthier lifestyle overall. Next slide, please. All right, so reverse osmosis. So reverse osmosis is one of the most effective ways of actually purifying water. And it's incredible that we actually have this technology now, because this is something that is absolutely necessary in several different parts of the world. It's just not a lot of people have access to it, unfortunately. But reverse osmosis typically has around 3 stages. The first stage is what we call the pre-filtration stage, and it's designed to initially remove larger particles. And then the second stage is the reverse osmosis membrane. And that's when you actually pass the water through this membrane, which is comprised of a semi-permeable sheet that allows certain things to pass and preventing other things from passing. So usually it's 0.0001 microns in diameter. And so that means that things like heavy metals, pesticides, bacteria, viruses, all that stuff is bigger than the diameter of a molecule of water, which means that the water can pass, but it prevents anything else from passing through. So when you are doing reverse osmosis, you are getting truly the most clean, the most pure form of water that you can get. In fact, it's so pure that sometimes it can remove things like minerals from the water as well, which is why sometimes I also talked about in my video, I would also like to add like a little bit of a pinch of salt sometimes, just so I can get a little bit of taste back in the water. But it's a very effective way of cleaning water. And then, of course, there's the post-filtration process, and that's just the final stage of water, which enhances the water quality. And in the water drop purifier, there's actually a UV sterilizer. So that's part of the post-filtration process. Next slide, please. All right, so we talked about reverse osmosis. We know that its efficacy is pretty high. And the pros are that it removes a wide range of contaminants, including things like salts and minerals, but it can be expensive, and sometimes it can produce wastewater. The carbon filtration method is another method, which is actually a pretty effective way of cleaning out water. The water purifier that we have, the water drop purifier, actually does both. It does reverse osmosis and has a carbon filtration system as well. And the carbon filtration system removes things like chlorine and improves the taste and odor as well. But it doesn't remove all contaminants, and it does require regular replacement. And boiling is, I would say, a pretty expensive way of doing it too, because you got to somehow generate the heat to actually be able to clean the water, right? But it's a moderate method to clean the actual water, and it can only kill bacteria and viruses, but all the diluted and all the dissolved contaminants are still there. So it's not the best way to actually go about doing it. I would say the most effective means of being able to clean the water, of course, is going to be reverse osmosis. Next slide, please. All right, and so I'm going to let the master plumber kind of take care of this part, but I'm just going to briefly explain that it's very important to regularly replace your filter. You got to make sure that you do routine cleanings, and you got to make sure that you monitor the water quality as it's being produced, because filters do expire. So it's important to make sure that you cycle through them when necessary. Next slide, please. All right, and then lastly, just a few myths. So the first myth is that water is devoid of minerals. Filtered water is devoid of minerals. So while reverse osmosis can remove some minerals, it's important to remember that there are some filters out there. In fact, water drop makes some mineral retaining reverse osmosis systems, which can actually retain beneficial minerals and ensure proper hydration. Filtered water is expensive is another myth. A lot of times these modern filters are, a one-time payment, and then you can go several months with clean water without having to buy, several water bottles throughout that entire month. And so I can't see the third one over there, but I think you guys get the idea. Next slide, please. All right, and so that's going to be it for me. So just overall, I think I kind of harped on this, but it's important to remember that water is absolutely essential for your entire body, but it is very important for brain function. When we have patients in the hospital, a lot of them can be incredibly ill, and one of the first things that we do for them is we put them on a normal saline drip, which is just for IV hydration. It's not a secret that hydration is absolutely essential. It is key to maintain someone's health, to make sure that someone has appropriate ability to remove waste, to make sure that someone has the proper volume in their body to be able to pump their blood throughout the entire system. So I do obviously encourage hydration, but it has to be proper hydration with clean water. And the system that I use is the water drop filtration system.
Fantastic. So we've got a few questions from the audience, and I'm so glad that you told us about your dad being in sanitation, because I think this first one is not quite a question, but more of a scenario that maybe you can address. And it's coming from Rosebud, talking about New York water, New York City water, and that there's some of the older buildings with some of the pipes, the water looks darker or leaving kind of a black residue. And maybe not specifically to darker black residue, but if somebody is not using specifically a filtration system or anything like that, besides the symptoms that you kind of talked about of saying there might be indigestion, there might be foggy, all the really bad stuff of the diarrhea and all those kinds of things. Are there things we may be seeing before we even ingest the water that may let us know, hey, maybe don't put that in your body?
Yeah, of course. So things like, and I think the master plumber might be a better candidate to answer this one, but I'll definitely comment on it. So one of the important things, of course, would have to be the clarity of the water. That would be the first thing I would look at. The other thing would be to look at the color of the water as well. If it's off colored, if it's like orange or something like that, yellowish, that's another kind of telltale sign that it might not be the safest thing to drink. If you are noticing a significant odor from the water, of course, that goes without saying. That's not something that I would recommend ingesting either. And also, sometimes, and this person already mentioned it already, saying that, you live in an older building. Older buildings tend to have hardware sometimes that could be a little bit more risky in terms of having plumbing. So I would say just be mindful of the age of the building that you're in, because the water has to go through that piping. So I would say, if you are in a place that is, I would say, considerably high risk, what I would tell you is that on our tests in medical school, the key thing that they ask us, the thing that's a giveaway that someone has lead toxicity, is if they live in a house that was built before 1950. So if you live in a building that was built before 1950, that's a dead giveaway on our medical exams that somebody may have been exposed to lead. So I would say, something in the 50s or even before that, just be mindful that there could be a potential that there could be some lead contamination as well. But again, I want to emphasize one more thing. I don't want to make everyone freak out that tap water is like the end of the world here. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say that there are better alternatives to tap water. Tap water is regulated, and there are certain things that the government looks for to make sure that it's safe for human consumption, but it's not the ideal source of hydration. That's what I'm trying to say.
Fantastic. We'll jump over to everybody else, but you just set this up way too well for me. We've got another question of, is it safe to drink water with fluoride? And you were talking about regulations. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So there has not been, okay, there are several different research trials that have been done to see if fluoride can impact things like the pineal gland, for example. The pineal gland is a gland in the brain which can sometimes help regulate the circadian rhythm, in addition to the hypothalamus. The pineal gland release things like melatonin and stuff like that. The reason I bring up the pineal gland is because sometimes it can cause calcifications within the pineal gland. Now, I have to go back and check the most recent literature to see if there is or isn't a direct correlation with fluoride consumption and calcification of the pineal gland. But what I can tell you, even if there is calcification of that gland, it does not necessarily impact your overall health, right? So several people have that. And I look at CT scans, brain scans, every single day. And what I can tell you is, I'd say a third of the patient, not a third, that's a little high. I'd say maybe 15% of the patients that I look at their brain scans will have some sort of calcification inside of the pineal gland. So in terms of brain function and overall brain cognition and stuff like that, I have not seen that there is any direct impact on memory, brain function, and all that stuff. There is some loose, very, very loose connection and correlation with formation of a possible dementia down the line. None of that is confirmed. None of that is for sure. It just needs to be studied more. It's just a difficult thing to study because you have to do what's called a prospective trial. You have to expose people to certain things and then follow them for decades to be able to see if there's a direct impact. So if there is, then the answer is that it would be several decades down the line. However, there's no immediate impact on brain function, cognition, and if it does cause calcification in the pineal gland, it should not affect the circadian rhythm of the individual.
Fantastic answer. I couldn't ask for better from a neurosurgeon. That was very, very well said.
Thank you.
Just to mention as well to all the audience members, we are in the health segment of this. So please, if you have any other questions, put them in the comments. And we're going to be doing a giveaway here soon in about 10-ish minutes. So make sure that you're commenting, putting your stuff in there. I want to open it up to the rest of you in terms of the maybe noticing the water quality. That way we don't have to come back to it in a later segment. Ben, JB, either one of you want to go at that? Chrissy, you're of course welcome as well.
Sorry, what was that?
Well, we were kind of discussing about noticing water quality or something about your water that may make, before you even drink it or put it in your body, may make you go, I may need to filter this or may need to consider something else.
Right.
Any
So
other telltale signs?
if you're asking the question, more than likely you probably shouldn't consume it, right? If you have black water coming out of your faucets, the idea is, there was a well guy who told me a long time ago, years ago when I was a little kid, he was digging a well in my yard. And basically what he said was that your water should have absolutely no taste. Clean water has absolutely no taste. Now, is that 100% true? Not necessarily. But if it's clean, it's clear, it doesn't taste like anything funny, you shouldn't get any sort of bitterness at the end or any sweetness to it. I mean, that's pretty much it. If you were living in New York City, you run the risk of having a situation where maybe there was poor plumbing work done, unlicensed plumbing work done. non-potable materials put in. You could even have lead. A lot of those old buildings have lead pipes inside of them. So, yeah, that would definitely be a case for filtration.
Gotcha. Sleepy Plumber, JB, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, Ben and Dr. Z really hit the nail on the head here. Yeah, if you're seeing anything that's, discolored water, anything like that, you're probably in the right area to be a little cautious of what's coming through the pipes there. If you see that on a regular basis, you definitely need to get a plumbing, professional out there of some sort. Either have your water tested, have them, see if there's an issue, why this is occurring. Maybe it is old piping. There could be a load of different things you'd be looking into here.
Yeah. Rose, thank you for tuning in. I think a lot of what Dr. Zioso showed in the presentation about the chronic illness stuff for you, yes. As a reminder to all of our experts, Rose was the one that mentioned about the dark stuff, and she has just put in that having a chronic illness and thus watching this and seeing if that would help. I want to we're still talking about the health stuff. Chrissy, I'm curious in your case, you have a fantastic video that shows all of this. You have kids. There's a lot of other considerations that come into this for you. Can you talk a little bit about your kind of thoughts with, the health aspect of using filtration systems or not?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I have a sister who lives in Flint, Michigan, and I think a lot of people have probably heard about the Flint, Michigan lead crisis basis, and that kind of opened up the door for us to actually consider what could be in our tap water that you couldn't see, that you couldn't smell, that you couldn't taste. Something that was just secret, that was there, that nobody knew was there until it just busted wide open. So one of the things that I would suggest that people do from like the health aspect of it is head over to Lowe's or Home Depot. They have free water test kits, and just discover what's actually in your water. Because even though it's been tested at the facility and is meeting certain health requirements based on the city, once it gets to like your building, like Rose was saying, once it gets to your building, once it gets to your house, the plumbing and stuff in your house, the government's not coming to your house and testing it. That what's coming out of our faucets is now kind of a bit more our responsibility. So making sure that you test it, and then getting her an RO machine right away. Reverse osmosis has been like the best thing for them in their house, because it's not like you could just sell your house and leave and move. And it's not something that's, easy in New York City to just go find a building with the same rent with the newer pipes and newer, it's not really feasible. So from the health aspect of it, it's in a bit our control. Test the water at your sink, at your faucet, and then to be able to take control of that ourselves and install the reverse osmosis. We use it for everything here. We use it for cooking, we use it for drinking, we use it for our pets and our plants, the kids, just everything. And we felt that since switching over from tap water, we drink an astronomical amount more water now. And I think it's just like what our doctor was saying, is just you drink more, it tastes better, you're being much more well hydrated than just the tap water. So yeah, we've definitely noticed some benefits here.
I'm happy to hear it. It's good stuff. Dr. Z, I've got a couple questions for you that may be a little bit more relatable to the audience. The first one is, we covered the big things like, diarrhea, all that kind of stuff. Is it possible for water to maybe even just cause you a little bit of gas? And if you're going like, ooh, I'm a little bloated, it's not necessarily all the way blown out like all the other stuff, but are there any of those other little kind of symptoms? Maybe I feel a little bit puffy. I feel after drinking the water. Maybe I have an allergy or something to something in the water. Could you touch on the very, very maybe early little symptoms that might be present?
Yeah, definitely. So the short answer to the question is that it depends on how much contamination is actually in the water. So in terms of having gas and bloatedness and stuff like that, the reason why we get bloated and the reason why we have gas is, I would say, bloated more than gas. Gas happens due to the intestinal bacteria. So let's keep that to the side. Let's say bloatedness, for example. The reason why people get bloated is because there's a shift in gradient of your electrolytes. So water will tend to go from one place to another. You retain more fluid. So if you are eating things that are high in sodium, for example, if you have a lot of electrolytes in the body, that would cause your body to actually retain more fluid, because the body's trying to maintain a state of what we call homeostasis, which is trying to maintain a normal, regulated level of certain electrolytes. So if you have an increased amount of electrolytes, the way that the body will try to combat that is by retaining fluid so that it can dilute the electrolytes to bring it back down to that concentration. So if it's a high concentration of electrolytes, it'll retain water. That is bloatedness. The answer to the question that you were asking, can I sometimes feel bloated and gassy? Answer is yes, but I would say it would be pretty rare to get that from tap water, just because it would have to be very contaminated to be able to experience things like that. I would say in countries overseas, that's very possible. There are certain parasites and bacteria that can actually cause people to have fatty stool as well. So you can actually have fat that comes out. So there's a lot of different things that can happen when you are drinking contaminated water. But when you're starting to experience those symptoms, that would be a concerning sign that at that point, you're not even thinking about, just filtered water. You're thinking about moving at that point.
Yeah, definitely. And then another question to you, but I can open this up to anybody else, is great. We know how to assess whether or not a filtration system is needed. We've filtered the water. What about our drinking container? BPA-free plastics, good, bad, not sure. Metal containers in terms of bottles. Should we be drinking from glass exclusively? Any thoughts on the container we drink from?
Yes. So having some of these water containers, it's very evident that they do contain what we call forever chemicals. There is, and I even learned this in medical school, there is evidence, there is research to support the notion that if you are exposed to these forever chemicals, PFAs, you are most likely, not most likely, you are putting yourself at risk for developing hormonal imbalance issues down the line. And it can dysregulate several different hormones. And hormones are what control everything in the body. When people think hormones, they just think mood and stuff like that. Hormones control everything. They control your digestion. They control your sleep. They control your gastrointestinal tract. They control everything. So hormonal imbalance is critical. So yes, having water in certain containers that are not BPA-free, that are not PFA-free, those are situations where you could be putting yourself at risk for having hormonal dysregulation. The best container, to my knowledge, is a chemically inert container, which would be something made out of what's called silicon dioxide. That's glass. So silicon dioxide is glass. So if you have a glass container, it has been shown to be very effective at retaining its integrity and not really seeping into water, because silicon dioxide is not dissolvable. It doesn't, even if you heat it up, it would require a very, very high temperature to actually cause it to seep into the water. So if you leave it in your car, for example, it should be safe still. But things like plastic water containers, that could be putting you at risk for ingesting some of these unwanted chemicals. Of course, some of these companies also advertise that they do not have these chemicals within the water bottle. I think that's reasonable. I think that's perfectly fine. I just don't know if there's other chemicals in them that we haven't discovered yet that could be potentially risky. I don't know that, but if I had to pick one container, I would say glass.
Yes, I know Chrissy is on board with that. As something that I noticed in one of her videos was that not only was the container glass, the actual straw was also glass, because you may just be thinking, oh, great, I have a glass cup, but I put a plastic straw in there. Well, you're still gonna have the problem that you have. Chrissy, do you want to talk about that at all? Like, how did you make that transition? Was it immediately everything glass? Was it step by step?
No, actually, the getting rid of plastic was one of the first things that we did, even before considering filtered water and moving into eventually reverse osmosis water. Was that we could taste it, the plastic taste in our water. And so then we transitioned away from it to glass, and also we use a lot of the stainless steel lined water bottles. We find, and I also find that they don't get dirty as easily as plastic. So I don't know if there's something, with the plastic in reaction to water, but plastic will get all slimy. If water's sitting in there for a day, you pick up your water bottle the next day, you open it up and it's all scuzzy on the inside. But for glass, it doesn't generally happen. And for stainless steel, unless you've sat it in there for a few days, those just seem like such just a safer product. And it just tastes better and it keeps everything cold longer, just better.
Yep, absolutely. And I think we're having more and more of these kinds of containers that are more and more accessible. The only, and this is from personal experience, if you have glass containers, they do shatter. That happens. Beware. You can't drop them. Unlike plastic and steel, sometimes water bottles you can easily drop. Glass water bottles, hold on tight, please. Please, everyone. All right. With that, we are pretty much at the top of the health segment. So we get to do our first draw. In this case, we're going to be drawing. I'm going to close my eyes and scroll through all of the comments. We're going to scroll up and down, make it as random as possible.
And
And the
Stefan, while
person
you're
at
doing
the
that, I hate to interrupt. I'm so sorry, but I just wanted to, now that we're at the end of the health segment, I just wanted to
Yeah.
say it before anyone logs off. I want to make it clear, none of this is medical advice, at least from my standpoint. I want to make sure people understand that it's important to speak to your physician. Please contact a medical specialist. I know that Rosebud is saying a lot about, I've been noticing chronic illness and stuff like that. This is not a substitute for speaking to a physician in person. They need to run labs. They need to do a physical exam and all that kind of stuff. So just please remember, this is not a substitute for a healthcare visit. That's all I had to say.
And so important to say. Thank you. Yes. All right. With that, let us. Well, we have one more question. Do you want to try to hit up that question? Does bottled water have risks? I know that Dr. Z, you said that you kind of got away from that. And again, this is still not medical advice.
Correct. So I don't want to, again, this is not fear mongering or anything. There could be some plastic that leaches into the water, which could potentially down the line cause someone to develop issues such as hormonal dysregulation and issues with actually maintaining an appropriate homeostatic level of health. So yes, it is possible that water bottle could leach some plastic into your system. But overall, in general, yes, it is safe to drink. There's nothing wrong with bottled water. It's designed to be a clean source of water. But the idea is that if you consistently drink it down the line, it is not the best form of hydration. There are better alternatives to it. So yes, you can drink it. Yes, it's safe. You'll probably be fine. But if you want to have the best way of actually hydrating yourself, I would recommend having a different container with a very clean, purified source of water, like the water drop filtration system with reverse osmosis.
Yeah, and as we hear, and I'm sure you being in the medical profession, prevention is always going to be so much better than trying to fix the actual problem. And
Yeah,
so we try to do
absolutely.
preventative medicine, but that I think most patients aren't the best at it. So here's your chance, everyone. All right. With that, we're going to be selecting 5 specific winners. What I'm going to do is, as I scroll through all of these, I'm going to select one, take a screenshot of it. I will announce the name so you know who you are, and I will tell you what you won. We're going to be doing other ones after each segment. We still have 2 more segments left, you guys. 2 more segments of fun stuff. All right. Off we go, and we'll be addressing some of the other questions later on as we get to them. All right, I close my eyes. I'll see whoever's at the top of my screen after I'm done. All right, there. We've got Lily. Lily D commented Water 101. Make sure that you reach out to service@waterdropfilter.com. That's service@waterdropfilter.com. Send them your claim for all this, or you can reach them on any of the social medias handles and just DM them as well. All right. She won, by the way, $100 coupon off of the Water Drop website. So this is an additional $100 off. All right. We're going to have 4 more people that I'm going to select in the exact same way. And these are also coupons for $100 off. All right. Closing my eyes, up and down and up and down and up and down. And we have Rose. Look at you. You commented, you stuck around. Rosebud. Please make sure that you email them. Again, service@waterdropfilter.com. We'll do 3 more here. Again, I'll close my eyes. I'm not cheating, I swear. All right. Sorry, Rose, you can't win again. I got you again. It's because you're so active. You're fantastic. All right. Next one is Danny Lynn. 2 more. And that is, jump down from me. Let me make sure I take a picture of it. Kakarot. All right. And last one. All right. That is
You
Ire.
clearly did not grow up watching Dragon Ball Z.
Exactly.
That was painful.
Sorry, I did not. Thank you. I'm glad that you called me out on it. I did not grow up watching Dragon Ball Z. I was always envious of all the kids that did watch Dragon Ball Z. What? How do you pronounce the character's name?
I mean, you weren't that far off.
Okay.
Kakarot. But I'm just being silly.
I
wasn't
should
that
also
cool.
guess by the Dragon Ball Z that they had the icon. All right. Those are the 5 I don't remember everybody. It was Lily D, Rose. Do you guys want to say it? Kakarot. Danny Ling and Ire. Make sure that you send your claim to service@waterdropfilter.com. All right. Moving right along. And make sure that as we keep going, you can keep on commenting. Those of you that didn't win, increase your chance for it. We're going to move on to our second segment, and this is going to be more about the installation of these systems, the difference, the pros and cons of all these systems. In which case, I'm going to have Sleepy Plumber. Can you intro yourself? And then, Ben, I'll have you intro yourself afterwards.
Yeah, so everybody knows me by Sleepy Plumber online. My name is JB or Josh. I've been in the plumbing industry doing service plumbing, residential mostly, a little bit of commercial for about 9 years now. And it's my day-to-day job, and I love what I do.
Awesome. And you love dogs.
And I love dogs.
Ben, tell us a little about you.
Oh, great. So I'm Ben Whitney. I actually usually go by Sick Kids Entertainment, but I didn't put my handle on the thing like Sleepy Plumber. But that's what everybody knows me by on all the social media platforms. I'm a New Jersey service plumber, New Jersey master plumber. I've been doing this for like 12 years now. I feel like I'm qualified to talk on the subject. I was gonna go and bring up how much your brain weighs and stuff like that, but Dr. Z obviously took it for me. Yeah, basically, mostly on social media for all intents and purposes. I'm kind of more of an entertainer and comedian, so I don't really do the educational thing very much, but this is a nice change of pace for me. I like it.
Okay, sounds good. We'll start with JB. Josh, can you tell us a little bit about, Dr. Z touched on it, but how do these filters work in general? How maybe different kinds of filters work? And what factors should we be considering when we're choosing a filter? It's quite a lot for you.
Okay. Yeah. I'll kind of start with kind of like your more basic filters are like carbon filters. Activated carbon filters are pretty common in I would say most homes in my area, which is central Missouri here. You want to have some sort of carbon filter because it's going to take out a lot of minerals. Basically, what it does is it uses a process called absorption, where some of the contaminants are basically attached to the carbon and it's removed from the system. It works similarly for a whole house system, similarly to like a water softener, where it goes into the media itself and then it has to clean itself, disposes the nasty water to the drain, and then it's ready to re-clean that water for you. Carbon filters, you're usually taking contaminants out such as like chlorine, chloramine, sediment, lead, pesticides, herbicides, stuff like that you're not really going to see in the water, but you're going to drastically see a change in taste and odor after you put water through a carbon filter. I know anytime I have a customer that says, man, I just really don't like the way that my water smells, comes out of the faucet, I can turn it on and I can smell the chlorine coming through the faucet. I don't even need to test it. I will test it, but I can smell it coming out of the faucet right off the bat. And I'm like, hey, we really need to talk about water filtration, especially carbon filters. And then we go down that path. And we start talking about that. We start talking about drinking water systems, stuff like that. So specifically kind of like with some of the water drop products, they have the 10UA, which they sent me to try out, and it's freaking awesome. It's a sediment carbon filter like combo system. Super easy to install. You just mount it to the side of your cabinet. I have my kitchen faucet plugged into one side and going out to the other. So it's basically all my cold water is being filtered, which is great. I don't typically drink a whole lot of water out of my tap because I do have an RO system, but it doesn't scare me. You know, I can use it for cooking. It's a little bit quicker to fill up a pot or something like that. I can fill up my dog bowls, stuff like that. I feel like, you know, they're getting clean water. I don't have to use the RO system for them. And it's going to remove, you know, all those unnecessary chemicals and, you know, contaminants that are coming through the water. It's not designed, carbon filters themselves are not designed to like lower total dissolved solids or anything like that. It's not a membrane filter of any sort. We'll get into that here in a minute with ROs, but it is designed to basically clean that water up. It's going to leave more of the good minerals in, take the bad stuff out, and make it, you know, a lot easier to drink for you.
Gotcha. Okay. Are there kind of in general for your when you're going to be installing it, when you're looking at it, are there pros and cons that you look at with these different units? Is it sometimes better to maybe splurge for the heavier unit because you might as well just install it? It's better filtration, or how do you flip flop between those two?
Me personally, I would typically recommend for most customers getting some sort of whole house filtration. If you do it faucet by faucet, that's a little bit more upfront installation costs. If you do, you know, one large system for your entire house, then you know everything in your house, cold and hot, is going to be taken care of for you, which is, you know, a one-time payment. You buy the system, you have it installed once, and you're pretty much good to go. Typically on whole house systems, you're going to get, I would say, at least 10 to 12 years of 100% like efficient working systems. Over time, mechanically, you know, stuff like that, it's going to fail over time. So I'd say once you get to that 12 to 15 year mark, you should probably start thinking about a new system anyways, whether it's RO systems, filter systems, whole house filtration, stuff like that, because at that point, 10, 15 years down the road, every product has probably been updated with better technology, better filtration. And at that point, you're probably losing out on some beneficial stuff.
Fair. What about in terms of kind of placement? If you're not doing a full house filtration system and you just want to do partials, what should people be thinking about of, ooh, okay, maybe I want to install a filter. I sometimes use maybe my fridge for the water. Sometimes I may be using the tap. What am I thinking about? Where I might be placing it? What's best in your opinion?
Are you speaking specifically of carbon filters or?
Carbon versus osmosis, just in general.
Okay.
What are some other factors that people might consider besides the filter itself, placements of filters, or any of those things?
Honestly, one of the most used faucets in your house is going to be your kitchen faucet. So typically, I like to keep stuff mostly in the kitchen. You know, you can always install more filters there. I guess there's more space underneath the sink than any other sink in the house as well. I know a lot of people are interested in putting them also, like just small carbon filters underneath their bathroom sink faucets. They like to brush their teeth with clean water. That's a good idea as well. Kind of moving over to like RO systems, I would specifically say usually keep those, you know, directed towards kitchen. Usually it comes with a different faucet. You're getting supplied, you know, water there, or you can also attach it to like a refrigerator if you so choose. Typically when you have a reverse osmosis system installed, you don't really have to send it over to your fridge because your best water is coming out of this faucet anyway. But it's not going to hurt. Reverse osmosis, kind of like Dr. Z had touched on, it uses like a semi-permeable membrane filter with high pressure, forcing itself through this filter. That's, what is it, 0.0001 microns. It's super, super small. Think of it like this. I know I'm going to butcher this analogy. I talked with a water expert a few months ago. But think of it of whenever everyone's leaving a big like sporting event, right? There's 50,000 people in the stands and you're all trying to squeeze through this one door, right? That's basically what you're doing. You're taking a high pressure or a high amount of people in this instance or water, and you're forcing it through a very, very, very small opening. So it's going to take a long time to get that through there, but the turn down rate is pretty good. On some of the water drop systems, the higher end systems, it's like a 3-to-1 ratio. So you're getting, what that basically means is you're getting 3 gallons of water for every 1 gallon wasted, basically, to make that clean water. but trying to force it through a very, very, very small filter to take all of that junk away, which is really good. So let me see here. Trapping contaminants, yep, allowing water to pass through. Most systems will have like a sediment filter, a pre-filter, a post-filter, and a membrane filter. Those are kind of like your 4 basic filters that most RO systems will have within them. There's multiple different stages inside there that go really deep into the filtration process, but reverse osmosis is going to give you like the cleanest possible water available to consumers, other than like ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, which is not really anything you get into unless you're an industrial, which I don't even get into.
So with that, we kind of talked about some of the factors. We have Danny asked an important question to this. You mentioned full house systems, maybe 10 years or so. In general, for filtration systems, is there a way to increase their longevity?
So the systems themselves, I don't know if you can really increase the longevity of the system itself. When it breaks, it breaks. But by changing filters and maintaining and making sure that you're staying on top of changing those regularly, you're going to continue to give clean water to that faucet, and you're not going to have any issues down the road. Most of the RO systems that I've seen in my area, I would say on regular, they're probably changing filters about once a year. I know some of the water drop filters can go, I think, 2 years or 3 years possibly. And then there are a couple of them that you do need to change a little bit more often, just because it is picking up so much sediment and stuff through that pre-filter that it probably should be changed about every 6 months. So as long as you're keeping up with changing those filters, you shouldn't have any problems. It should work for years to come.
Gotcha. And Ben, I know we were getting to you in terms of the replacement and that kind of stuff. So I know that's kind of your pick. Anything else to add? Anything more about replacing, the importance of it? Tell us
So,
more.
so I want to make a point of it just from my perspective, and you got to understand, I got notifications on things. I'm going to touch the screen a lot, but from my perspective and the way that I've seen people act. So there's like a behavioral aspect to it with the way that people actually treat their plumbing and the way that they maintain it. And I've always recommended to people, first off, you can't really over filter. There's kind of no such thing as over filtration. So if you wanted to add a whole house filter and then have a drinking water filter, you're not in a position where like you're going to be in trouble because of that. Right. And actually the drinking water filter in theory should last longer in that case. But you want to put yourself in a position where you are going to be able to maintain the system, right? So if you have a whole house filter, having it someplace that's easily accessible, having it be a system. So a thing that we used to sell a long time ago was these carbon filters. They were these big tanks, right? And the tank had a media in it that would last 5 years. All right. So 5 years you would get out of it. And then to change the media was such a pain in the ass. Nobody ever did it. So then it's basically a useless filter after 5 years, and they're in a position where they just got to buy another one. I had something like that in my house. I had one of those tanks. The thing clogged up. It broke. I pulled it out, and I just put a regular 12-inch carbon filter in there, and then I just change it every 6 to 12 months. It's easier a lot that way if you have a system that's easily maintainable, right? So that's my big point about it.
And a great point. Kind of to both of you, we had a great question about if you have to install it in an apartment. So maybe you can't do a full house unit in that. It's specifically an apartment. Which might be a better solution and better choices for an apartment in terms of filtration systems?
Drinking water. If you're going to do an apartment system, then you would probably want to do something under the sink. And especially there's easier ways to do it. You don't necessarily have to cut in a valve for it. You can buy like little speedy valves and things to go and tee off the top of your cold water on your sink. There's a lot of really easy ways to do it. And I know the water drop filters, they a big point that they make about it is to make it uncomplicated. So, the actual installation process is really quick. Everything kind of snaps together and then just goes right in.
Yeah. JB, anything to add on thoughts in general of when installing in an apartment, things people should consider? Maybe they should get multiple filters or...
Yeah, I mean, it's easy enough to like. So I lived in an apartment or duplex, what do you want to call it? For I don't know, it's probably 6, 7, 8 years ago now, and they had an extra hole on the stainless steel sink. I was like, man, I'm gonna put an RO system in because like why not? Like whenever I leave, I'm just gonna take it with me, and then there's gonna be a hole just like there was when I got here. And so, I mean, I didn't have to drill any holes or anything. I just slapped the thing in there. I had clean water ready to go day one. Another thing you can do, kind of like I was saying earlier, that 10UA unit, it's a teeny tiny little unit. You just quarter turn, take the filter out, quarter turn, put the filter back in. It's like super easy. It's going to go directly to your kitchen faucet. So if you're not interested in getting into the RO systems and stuff like that, if you don't want to drill any holes in the countertop or anything like that, that's no big deal. You can definitely still get that carbon filter, and it's going to clean that water up easily enough for, anything in an apartment.
Great. And definitely better than not having a filter altogether.
Definitely.
To your point. Since we are kind of talking a little bit more about apartments, a slight deviation away from just filters, any kind of ideas of talk to your landlord or make sure don't just drill holes or anything like that in terms of coming in and having plumbers kind of install this? Should they be having somebody come in and install if it is the reverse osmosis filter, or should people be doing it themselves? Any guidelines from either one of you or both, please?
So for us, now I'm in New Jersey. So if you wanted to install something like this in your apartment, technically it's not legal for you to have me out to install it without the permission of the person who owns the property, right?
Same here.
So, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get away with it. I've had plenty of people rented places, and I didn't even find out until the end of doing a job for them that they were renters. So.
Yeah,
Again,
be careful.
you can do whatever you want as long as you don't get caught. That's down to.
There you go.
I like it. Good advice from plumbers. Now, we have a question here, and I'm going to explain my utter ignorance because I'm not sure what it means, but I'll read it to you, and maybe you can answer it better. Is a water filter with higher TDS better?
It depends what the total dissolved solids you have in your system are.
Right.
Because there's a whole lot of different have going through a water filter. Minerals in a lot of cases are considered to be total dissolved solids. So is arsenic. So I mean the thing is, you really have to know what's in your water to make that determination. In most cases, it's kind of one of these things. If you have a reverse osmosis filter, you're guaranteeing yourself that you're getting everything out of the water. There's no harm in having it, right? But it all comes down to what's in your water.
Chrissy had mentioned earlier there's go to Lowe's, I'm sure Home Depot as well, that there's test kits. Do you guys recommend any kind of home test kits that people might want to check for any of those things that might be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, you can get some basic test kits from, Lowe's, Home Depot. That's perfectly fine. It's going to test for some simple stuff. I know that you can buy like a little TDS meter on Amazon for like $15-20. That'll give you a pretty good, checkup on what you have in your water specifically. I know another good resource that I use from time to time is, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but ewg.org/tapwater. If you go in there, you go directly to like their homepage, you can type in your zip code and you can see exactly what's listed in your water in your area. Now, it might be a little bit different once it gets to your home, kind of like Chrissy and Dr. Z were saying, once it travels to your home, things could change a little bit, but that's roughly what it's going to be like in your area. If you are concerned, though, please have a professional come out and test your water. You can get an entire panel done if you need, especially if you're on well water. You can get an entire panel done. It's like $200, $300, $400, something like that. And then you can know exactly what's in your water.
You should make a point on this that if you do have well water, you should be testing your water annually.
Yes.
A big problem that we have around here now, New Jersey is population-based pollution, man. So a big problem that we have is people coming to find out that they have contaminated wells. And they only find that out, somebody needs to get a well certificate for selling their house, and then they, come to find out that they knocked down a factory, and now the thing is polluted with BPA's. There was actually a big accident. Well, they call it an accident, but these things are never actually accidents. With a company called Fisher Scientific years ago, and it was in Bridgewater, New Jersey. And basically, this company leached a bunch of. They were leaving like mercury out on the ground, they make like thermometers and all that stuff. They're leaving mercury out on the ground, and they poison thousands of wells. And a lot of people died in this accident. You could read up all about it. It's all over the news. There's a lot of cases of it. But these are things if you have well water, you need to be making sure that you test it and, see what's in there, because that kind of stuff happens a lot. I was just on one recently. An entire street got, they tested high PFAs, right? So it was the entire block. And the windup was they connected everybody to city water, but they wouldn't have known if it wasn't for like a CO on an apartment on this one street.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. To our audience, I know several of you have asked the benefits and the long-term benefits of drinking reverse osmosis water. We had just had our health segment in it. Basically, there are lots in terms of, and it's almost not even as much the benefits of drinking it, but the benefits of not drinking water that hasn't been properly filtered, and those other things. That's really kind of what you're preventing those kinds of things. But there are many. Dr. Z had some fantastic slides on that. There may be a recording of this live stream that you might want to go back to and watch that segment, because we go into detail on that. All right, for our two master plumbers, as we're kind of wrapping this up, a final sort of question in terms of installation and thoughts around installing it. Are there any difficulties that you might find, or things where you're like, yeah, that's just not going to work? Rose obviously talked about New York apartments, which are notoriously tiny. So any other considerations besides, okay, you probably main kitchen sink has enough space underneath. Anything else that people might want to consider, or difficulties while installing?
One thing I see pretty often is, so say, for example, you don't have much room underneath your sink. If you have any sort of basement, I know we have a lot of basements here in Missouri, you can always put the RO system in the basement and you can run a line up to that sink. It makes it a lot cleaner. I don't know. I guess I maybe see it 30% of the time in houses. I would love to do it in my house, but my wife won't let me cut through the ceiling just a little bit to, run a line up through it. So it's underneath my sink. That is what it is,
Yeah, and a lot quieter if you do it through the basement as well, if people
Yes.
are really worried about that. Which
Yes.
these systems are not loud at all. We'll get to Chrissy on that shortly. But Ben, from your side, in terms of installations or any things you've noticed?
I mean, I want to make a point about the water drop RO, is that it is a tankless RO, right? So the normal, the standard reverse osmosis that we're used to had this huge tank that came with it, and it was like a storage tank before the faucet. And yeah, that one took up a lot of room. If you didn't have any space in your cabinet, then you were kind of screwed. But the one that they're, selling now, that it's really, I mean, it's small.
It's sweet.
I can't think of any situation that would make it impossible to install.
I like it. And if I know anything, plumbers are very creative. So yes, you will find a way. A final question, more so honestly from me, but I'm sure the audience might benefit from this as well. A lot of times we may think, oh, one of those pitcher filters of whatever variety, yeah, it's good enough. I'll just use one of those. We kind of talked about the various types of different filters and all that. How would that compare in terms of how well it might filter things to a carbon or I guess it is partially a carbon and charcoal, to reverse osmosis or anything like that? If people are going, maybe I'm not ready for a full giant unit installation and I just want a pitcher filter.
So yeah, I mean, you get a pitcher filter. Like you said, yeah, it's mostly like a charcoal and carbon filter that's going to take out, most of the larger stuff that's coming through the water. You're not going to get quite the filtration you would get in an RO system, just because basically that membrane filter is really that's the golden goose of the RO filter systems. I think sometime here in the future, we'll probably be seeing a little bit better technology with those. With the membrane filters. I think at some point we'll probably have like whole house membrane filters, but large companies right now are working on those systems. They don't want to put out a product that's kind of okay and then have to, bring it off the market. So I think maybe here in the next 10 years, we're going to see something that's long lasting, self-cleaning, that could be working very, very long times.
And I want to make a point about the pitcher filter real quick, and it's just another one of these things that, like I was talking about before, like it sucks to fill up a pitcher with water and sit there and wait for the thing to drop down into it so that you could have water. On top of that, putting it in the fridge and leaving it there, it's probably breeding ground for bacteria. I mean, I don't see it. I don't see that as a better system at all. And if my math is correct, compared to those filters, an RO is probably like 25,000 times smaller particles that it's going to filter out. So,
well, and there's no, waiting time with that.
Yeah.
With that pitcher, you got to wait for it.
Very true.
Don't bring pitcher into this.
The only tiny other thing that I will say about the pitcher stuff is, in the health section, we discussed about plastics and all those kind of things. The vast majority of these pitchers are plastic. Sure, BPA free, all that fun stuff. You're going to be hard pressed. Dr. Z made a point that glass is one of the best. It's the one that really doesn't end up leaching or putting anything into the system. It's going to be hard for you to find a glass pitcher that also has the lid that fits the. You can jerry rig something, but the vast majority of the time. And also, I mentioned, if you ever drop it, bad things happen with glass. All right. With that, we're going to our next giveaway. This one, even better. It is for the K19 Instant Hot one. This is a $300 value, people. $300 value to anyone that has commented and has not won a prize yet. I'm going to scroll through all these. I'm going to close my eyes. And the comment that is at the very, very top, I don't know if this is going to get reflected on the screen everyone else sees, but that is the one who is going to win. All right. Closing my eyes, scrolling. Worried about mispronouncing names and getting yelled at by a doctor about it. I'm just kidding. All right, we'll stop right there. And Baby J, you asked some fantastic questions, and you get to win a thing for it. How amazing is that? Make sure that you email service@waterdropfilter.com. That's service@waterdropfilter.com, or DMing on any of the social media handles for your prize. You get a $300 prize. Isn't that amazing? Yes. Yes. Orange biting nails. All right. Fantastic. We did have one more question here that kind of came in during the midst of all that. That I wanted to address. Let me find it again. In terms of, Evelyn asked which models might be best in terms of the filters, but I'm sure that is that a difficult question to answer depending on brand, depending on all these different things. You've obviously mentioned that the water drop, JB, that one really has been working well for you with the charcoal. Carbon. But any other models that anybody, and I can open this up to everybody. I think, Chrissy, this might be a kind of a fun segue into yours. You had the X12 that you tried out and made a video about, but anybody else want to talk about models, which models they might have used that have been beneficial for them?
I can model numbers off the top of my head.
I mean, I had the G3600 that works awesome. Kind of like we went over earlier, it's a tankless, option. It's very slim. It's very sleek. It's got 3 main filters you take out, in and out, super easy, nice, clean water. I think its digital readout was like 24 TDS. And then I put my TDS meter and it was like 27. So I was like, that's pretty accurate. I mean, anything I would say below like 100 parts per million TDS, you're pretty dang good. Most tap water around here is like 350, 400. So it's not deadly by any means, but you're definitely cleaning that water a lot.
One more thing I wanted to add too is, you guys are doing a great job of talking about these installed RO systems. I have one of the countertop systems and I actually like it a lot. I just fill it up with tap water and then it filters my tap water and it's been fantastic. It's kind of annoying because you do have to replace the water pretty frequently. I would say maybe twice, maybe 3 times a week. But it's been great. If you want to avoid the installation, like, I'm not a plumber by any means, but I am in a rental unit, so I decided not to drill all the holes and stuff. So I decided to just get the countertop system, and I like it. I feel like it has all the same benefits and same functionality. So that's an option for those people too.
Great. Wonderful insights.
Yeah, and actually, we have the pitchers, the countertop, and the undersink that we've been using. So I can speak on all of those. This is a good segue into my part.
This is a perfect. The only tiny thing I'm going to say, Jane, you asked if you still have a chance to win. Yes, our biggest prize is coming at the end of this segment. I'm actually, I'm blown away that they're giving this thing away. So please stay, please comment, put in your questions. But yes, Chrissy, could you just tell us a little bit about you, and then tell us about all the awesome products you've tried out and what you thought.
Yeah, so I own my own business. It's Harless Media Group. I'm a content creator. I usually do cannabis content on the internet, but I also have the elevated home. So this is like kind of a thing that I'm more interested in that I do because I actually like it. And as like kind of a side thing, I really loved the reverse osmosis, and I researched brands and I researched reviews and Trustpilot and all of that, and I landed on Water Drop. And so luckily we kind of partnered up and I got to test out a bunch of their things. Now I would say they do have a bunch of different models. The pitcher is what we had always used in the past. And like you guys were saying, it's such a hassle. You have to fill it up all the time. You have to wait for it. I'm too busy to like wait for it to drip drop and then pour it in. But I like that it's an option. Water Drop does have an awesome filtration system for it. So what I tend to do is I fill it up and pop it in the fridge. And use it for parties, like taking it outside into the backyard. It has a little dispenser on it, and then people can use it without having to go in and out of the house, because we have a lot of summer parties here, and I'm in Michigan, so like it doesn't get too hot here, but the flies and you don't want people going in and out of the house too much. So I love the pitcher for that. And especially if you don't have counter space or you're in a rental, the pitcher is probably going to be a really good option, but it does take up fridge space, that's like prime real estate. So the next option is the countertop model. And I had the A1, the Water Drop A1 reverse osmosis countertop model. And I did really love that as well. We had it set up right next to the sink. It kind of fit. Here, I'll show you guys. It fit in this like perfect little spot right here. It's pretty narrow. It's really easy to fill up. You can take the back off of it, or I swung my faucet over and I just refilled it there without having to lift the top and the back off, if that's something that's challenging for somebody that may be older or less like upper body mobility to be able to do. But we're a family of 4, and I was refilling that thing because we love the water, instant hot, instant cold. We could pick the temperatures and stuff that we wanted, but I was refilling it like 3-4 times a day because we were drinking so much water. And so we really wanted to do the undersink model. And I'll be honest, as like a person brand new to this, I thought this undersink model and drilling into a countertop, it was very overwhelming for me. I didn't want to think about doing it myself. We considered hiring a plumber, obviously, to do it. We got quotes. It wasn't too crazy expensive. I think it was about $100 to have somebody pop out here and do it. But my husband was adamant that he could, and that it was going to be easy peasy, and that Water Drop supplied everything we needed in the box. So it's had all of the hoses, all the connectors, even like the plumber's tape and the gaskets, like anything that you need other than the tool bit for the drill was the only thing that we had to buy. And we watched a quick YouTube video and it was easy. It was so easy. So I would suggest if you can do it, I think this is the best way, is the undersink model, because of just how little space it takes up, how quickly on demand it is, how easy it is to use. You never have to refill it. I never have to clean it. I don't have, like clean the tank out or anything because it's completely tankless. So I do really love it for that. I think the install part was the part that was the most confusing for me personally. But it turned out to be super easy.
A question that some people may have, may not have. I know some of your audience might have had this, and maybe we can pass it off to the plumbers as well if unsure. What about water usage? Is there kind of a worry of like, oh, it's going to waste more water if I use a filtration system, and this is going to be such a problem? Or can you address that as a homeowner? That can be sometimes quite an issue.
Yeah, actually. So I have a septic field, so it's a little bit different for me. I get city water brought in, and that accounts for 1/3 of my water bill. And then a lot of people also have the sewer out, and that'll account for 2/3. At least in my area, 2/3 of your water bill is your sewer out. And so I'm only measuring what's come in and not what's gone out. And my water usage has gone up a little bit. We have been drinking a little bit more water, and it does have a little bit of wastewater. The best ratio on the market, though, as far as the wastewater, you get 3 gallons of pure water to 1 gallon of the wastewater, but it's gone up $20 for the quarter. So it wasn't anything, I know,
Ooh.
whoa, it wasn't anything crazy. I mean, we could have even showered more. I don't know, used the water outside a little bit more in that amount of time. So I can't necessarily say it's exactly because of this, but year over year on my consumption chart, it's a negligible difference. I know for other people that do have sewer and they have to pay for the wastewater to actually go out, might see a little bit more of an increase than that. But I honestly, in comparison to purchasing bottled waters, like, this is negligible, and it's better.
Fair. We mentioned earlier you had the A1 unit as well. That was on the top. In terms of your kids using that one, how difficult was it for the kids to use, and maybe even compare that to the other one? I mean, the other one's basically just a faucet. It's pretty easy. The
Yeah.
under sink one. But what about the A1? Was that we had a question in the chat? How difficult was that for the kids?
Super easy to use. It's my kids are, well, at the time that I had that, they were 8 and 10, and it's very intuitive on the screen. The buttons all make sense. So you just tap it, and there's also a child lock. So you'd have to hold down the child lock button for 3 seconds before you could dispense the hottest of water, which was around 200 degrees, for like your tea. And so there was no accidentally hitting that and pouring out of water or anything going awry. And they didn't know how to unlock it, and they weren't curious about that, but it was really easy for them to use. This one is actually just was a slight bit more challenging for my youngest to use, just because of the height and the distance. So because it's on, like, at the countertop, for her to be able to reach all the way back here was a little bit different. And then also on the top here, this is where you're getting all of your information. I'm not sure if you can see it very well on the camera, but this is where you're getting the information. My youngest can't see how many ounces she is programming, so she just hopes for the best. When she when she spins it and taps the button, she's just like, I'll stop it when my cup is full.
I like it.
But
Filter
yeah,
water
it's
roulette.
super easy.
Kind of a combined. We had a question in the chat for JB, but this is gonna be one for JB and then for Chrissy as well. The question was, how long does it take to install the undersink unit? So JB, just a general estimate, and then Chrissy, I'd love to hear how long it took your husband to install it. No shame, just curiosity.
So, I mean, I was switching over. I had originally like an older tank style system. So I already had some stuff that was in place that, kind of worked. So mine was a little bit more, I would say, expedited, but I would probably say maybe, I don't know, hour and a half. You should have everything all taken care of. It's pretty quick. You don't have to, set out an entire Saturday or something like that and just block out the whole schedule. Yeah, you don't need to do that. It's not that hard.
Chrissy, how did it go? Was that about right?
It was about there. I think it took us about an hour and a half to do, but we were going super slow, and I was so nervous about drilling into the granite and cracking it that I was just like, look, we got to go the slowest possible. We just got to focus on this. But it was really easy because everything is very, they have a color coded, really easy plug and play kind of situation. I'll show you mine down here. It was, it doesn't take up very much space at all, but the challenging part for us was that our plumbing wasn't correct down here. So first thing that we had to do was take a picture and go on to Reddit's plumbing thread and have all the plumbers tell us how wrong it was and how to fix it in their comments. But this is the unit here. Can you guys see it just fine?
Yeah, we see it great.
All right, cool. Yeah, this is just the unit right here. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space in here, but we did have kind of like a second drain plumbing situation that we had to just kind of scoot over a little bit. That was the most challenging part. But yeah, Reddit plumbers, they're a huge help if you don't have a plumber on deck to ask.
Yeah. And you had also mentioned how it's actually very quiet. Some of the running water is actually sometimes even louder than the actual unit running itself.
Yeah.
having it for kind of now a longer amount of time, changing stuff out. Have you encountered any other stuff of just the upkeep of the unit? How's that been going?
Yeah, so I actually just hit the 6-month mark and almost right on the dot, the F2 filter went out. So I needed to get a new F2 filter, which is the one that's rated for the 6 months, and just swap that out. But it was super easy. I was honestly surprised because I had not looked at this before. And I think a lot of other more well prepared people probably would have considered the cost of filters and everything before purchasing a unit. But I just went in it because I knew this is what I wanted. And the filters are super cheap. They were cheap. It was cheaper to get the 6-month filter than it was to get like the multi-pack of filters that you get for the fridge pitcher, you know? So, and it lasts for 6 months. I think it was 29 bucks on Amazon too. So you can get like, that's the accessibility of this, is that I don't have to remember to go to Waterdrop, their specific website. And of course they do sell them, but to remember to go there. Instead, I could get this on Amazon. And if I really wanted, I think I could set it up as a subscription and just have it sent to me and have a bonus one, you know, kind of on deck for when it does happen. But when the filter did go out, it did a light beeping sound, like a warning. And then the filter will flash orange. So all of them are blue underneath to let you know that they're all running good. And then as soon as you see one change of color and it makes this light sound, then you know it's time to replace. And you have a couple weeks to replace it. It's not completely dead in the water at that moment in time. So you have enough time to place an order and get one and have it sent over. But it is really quiet. It's here, I'll fill up this pot real quick. One of my favorite features on this, honestly, is just like how easy it is to use. So right here, it's you don't have to have it just over the sink and hold a cup under it to fill it up. You can just swivel it over the counter and you can put a pot there. And did you even hear it turn on?
I'm just hearing the water. I didn't even hear the.
Yeah, you don't even hear the machine turn on. It makes, if you have somebody underneath you, like if you're in an upstairs apartment or a duplex, it does make a little bit of like a starting sound, like a thunk sound. For anybody that's right underneath, but it's like super quick. And you could probably pad it, put it on some sort of a pad to prevent that from happening or being as loud. But I think it's super quiet. It's even more quiet than the countertop one dispensing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Jane, you're asking about the costs. If you go to waterdropfilter.com, there's a variety of costs. And the reason I'm saying all this is because until 9:30 p.m. tonight, they're having a flash sale of 30% off of orders more than $300. So it's a huge time to buy right now. You just use the promo Water 101 at checkout, and you get 30% off. So you can peruse all sorts of different models. The one that Chrissy was just showing there, that's the X12. The A1 we talked about was more on the countertop. I imagine the A1 is probably a little bit cheaper, though I haven't looked, but you can see. And then there's, of course, the pictures that you also mentioned that are there. Chrissy, another quick question. This is slightly self-serving, but I always find that I can tell a little bit about the water quality by the ice cubes that I get from the water that I use. Have you found that when you freeze after you use this kind of water, that like the ice cubes are completely like see-through? There's none of that white, gunky awfulness stuff. Have you had any experience with any of that stuff?
I have frozen it because I wanted that to happen, but it didn't. It was still the normal looking ice.
Okay.
There was no change, but I had like one of those little whiskey balls. I was really hoping for a nice clear chunk of ice, but no, I think that there's other science behind it. I'm not sure what the other science is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a really weird thing. I have like this crazy obsession with making clear ice.
Okay,
But
good.
yes, there is a science behind it. So I actually am not good at it, but I've researched it, and it's actually a very lengthy process, and it's very meticulous. It has to be done in a certain way, and you have to like turn the ice at a certain point. It's just based on the gases that are basically dissolved inside of the ice. So basically you have to turn it in such a way that when the water freezes, there is no particulate that's dissolved, and that the gas rises to a certain level, and that it doesn't dissolve in the ice. So it's like a whole thing. But to make clear ice, if you ever go to like a fancy restaurant or whatever and you get perfectly clear ice, that is probably ice that they've had delivered or something, and it's probably very expensive.
Good to know.
Wow.
By the way,
I had
Dr.
no clue
Z,
there was that much.
yeah, you have so many fans in the comments wanting to see what your kitchen looks like, Dr. Z, and all that kind of fun stuff. But I'm to be clear, that means that if you use the system and then you get cloudy ice, it doesn't mean the system's broken. It just means that there's the way that the ice is freezing.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the dissolved particulates. Nothing to do with that at all. It's just about the way that you actually freeze the ice.
I learned something. I love when I learn
Same.
something.
Because I thought that it was just the water. Yeah,
Um,
so we
Go
do
ahead.
use this. I just want to note we do use this on everything in our house. Like we do use it for drinking is the most obvious. People are like, oh yeah, just get it for drinking water. But it's like making your coffee and your tea. It actually tastes better when you don't have that like mineral taste of regular tap water. It also helps those appliances last a lot longer. So you're getting the longevity out of more than just, you know, like the filter itself and the things that you're using. And like my water percolator has no calcium deposit spots in the bottom, like it always has in the past. And this one's a new one I've had for less than a year. Have only ever used the water drop on it, and it's like perfect. It looks like a brand new water filter. And the same thing for like my Nespresso machine or Keurig and things like that. And even for our pets. So we have a gecko, and the gecko gets misted down in her little terrarium, and there's always water spots all over the outside. And I'm, for the longest time, I've been fighting to get those clean so you can see the gecko. But with the water drop filter, with there being less total dissolved solids, less things in it, it all stays cleaner for so much longer. The pet's water bowls stay cleaner, the side of the glass all stays cleaner. It's just like you can tell in different small ways that it's beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a quick question about changing the filters within, and since you've had experience with the pitcher, the A1, the under the sink, what is your actual experience with having to change the pitcher, knowing that you have 4 people, and maybe even more than 4 people in the house? The gecko, I don't know how much water the gecko uses, but what's been the actual process of changing those filters? Is it usually pretty easy? Is it about when the products say that they will need to be changing? Can you tell us a little more?
Yeah, so I just waited until it told me. I didn't want to preemptively. Also, I don't have the memory to keep track of how long this filter has been in there or how long I've been using it for. No, it needed to tell me when to change it. I've always been really bad about changing like the pitcher ones in the past because there's no notification to tell me it's gone, it's dead. So with this was super easy. They sent one, and it already had like the O-rings and gaskets, everything that it needed attached to it. So I just had to untwist and pull it out and twist and put in the new one. And then you just hit the filter button for 7 seconds to reset it. That way it knows that you just installed a brand new filter. It'll stop making the sound. It'll reset the color. Their user manuals are actually really solid. They're really good. I didn't need to make a video on it, but we don't like to read user manuals, and they're boring. So the video is a little bit quicker, faster to the point. But it's all in there, and they've made it super easy, the install to the replacement. And like I said, it's on Amazon Prime. Like you can get the filters in a couple days once it starts going out.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. We are basically coming to the top of the hour, finishing off this live stream and coming to our final draw, people. Our final draw for our prize, our giveaway. I'm just making sure that I go through any of these extra other questions. Quick reminder for the people from the first draw that got the $100 coupons. Those are, I know Chrissy mentioned Amazon, those are specific to waterdropfilter.com. Make sure you use them there. Don't try using them on Amazon. It will not work. Same thing for the Water 101 code for 30% off on orders more than 300.
I actually had a quick question before we proceed. Is that okay?
Please.
So someone in my videos asked a very good question, and I didn't know how to answer it. Is there a concern for developing mold in these filtration systems?
Oh,
Not
JB,
that I've heard of.
Okay.
As of yet. I know some systems, and I'm not as familiar with water drop because it is new to me. but I know some systems do have like sanitation processes that you can run them through every once in a while. Typically, it's like a new startup installation type thing, which as you sanitize everything and then you're good to go. But I've not heard of mold growing inside of them, especially in like a tankless system where you're literally calling for it on demand, where water's not actively holding. Like in the old systems, they have a holding tank, so there could be a possibility you could get some mold in there because that water is always being held. But since this is a tankless system, the water drop systems, I don't think you'd have any issues with that at all.
Yeah, that's a good question. The video that I made was on the countertop system, which does have like a reservoir of water. So when they asked that question, it kind of made me think about it. I was like, that's a good question. I didn't really think about that. But I was just curious to see what you guys had to say. I guess if you just kind of consistently replace the water, it should be okay. And a lot of the stuff that I've seen, like where, there you go. Jessica Chen seems to be, I meant to say this.
She knows
Jessica
it.
Chen seems to be like an absolute, this person should be on this chat. So
Yes.
they know all the models. They know everything about water drops. So whoever Jessica Chen is, shout out to you. But yes, it sounds like that there's a feature for this. So I guess there's a way that they've kind of combated this already.
One final, we had this question a bit ago, and I want to address it before we do our final draw and kind of finish off. It was a question about microplastics and which filters might be able to filter out microplastics. Any input from anyone?
I don't see why the membrane filter in any of the RO systems wouldn't be able to take that out, because it's we're going down to microscopic, teeny tiny things that are even hard to see in a microscope. And we're cleaning this water so cleanly that, yes, it should be able to take those microplastics out easily.
Absolutely. And microplastics are, plastic is made out of a macromolecule. So it's a big kind of, not anatomic, sorry, atomic molecule. So it's a heavy kind of molecule. If you're able to dissolve out things like chlorine and things like lead and all that kind of stuff, which are even smaller than microplastics, you're going to be able to dissolve things like the microplastics.
All right. There you go. So that sounds like, if I'm correct, JB, that's the reverse osmosis is going to be the better system for that if somebody's concerned.
Absolutely.
All right. Fantastic. Speaking of reverse osmosis systems, our final giveaway is a big one. It's a big one. Chrissy's going to be excited because this is a giveaway for the X12. That's the one that she actually showed you down there. That's the one that it takes an hour and a half to install if you have a handy husband, or you can do it yourself, whoever wants to do it. Or if you want to hire a plumber, if you want to hire JB to drive out from Missouri for $100, I think it'll be a little more than that.
Might be
just a little bit. As before, I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to scroll up and down and up and down. And whoever I end on as the top comment where we are, that is the person that wins this amazing thing. So this is your time to start commenting all sorts of fun stuff. All right, here we go. The tension's killing me. Maybe it's just standing for this whole time. All right, we're going to stop right there. Who is it? Oh, it's Jane. I kind of landed on half of a comment, but it is Jane. I'm going to take a picture of that. All right. Oh, my goodness. You stuck around. It's an amazing story. We need to make a story about Jane Moe, the final giveaway. So please, because you won the biggest one of all the prizes and you've been asking so many questions. Service.
Congrats, Jane.
Yes. service@waterdropfilter.com. Please email them right there to claim your prize. service@waterdropfilter.com. Or you can DM them on any of the social media handles, but that's going to be kind of your easiest spot. With that, I'm just going to leave it. If there's one final question, either from any of our experts or if anybody puts it in, otherwise, we're going to be closing this live stream on up. I think I will ask one final question. I know that, Chrissy, you have increased the amount of water that you have been drinking as a result of all of this. But maybe this is, according to our chat, a question for the handsomest of the lot, Dr. Z. How much water? Hey, it's the chat. It's not me. How much water roughly should people be considering drinking overall in a day?
Yeah, so there are guidelines to this. So the current guidelines say that it should be around, I would say, 8 ounces 6 times a day, if I'm not wrong. I got to go back and confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that's what the recommended amount of water is. However, what I can say is that the body is designed in such a way that it is supposed to maintain a normal level of electrolytes, solutes, and things like that. Your kidneys do a fantastic job of being able to filter your body, your blood, and making sure that you are constantly in a state, again, of what we call homeostasis. So if you are thirsty, that is an indication that you have an elevated amount of sodium or electrolytes or a decreased amount of hydration in the body. That will trigger a certain part of the brain called the hypothalamus to release a certain hormone that goes to your pituitary gland to release antidiuretic hormone. And then the antidiuretic hormone will retain water and prevent you from urinating. So you're not urinating as much because you're trying to hold in water, right? But if you're, urinating a lot, and it's very, very clear urine, it's not a bad thing. It just means that you're probably just a little overhydrated. You don't need to drink that much. So your body knows what's the right amount of water. It will tell you. When you feel thirsty, you drink a glass of water. If you're not feeling so thirsty, maybe it's not so necessary. But if you are doing things that are very strenuous, like exercising and you're sweating, it does take some time for your body to recognize that you are depleted in hydration. So it might be ideal if you know that you're going to be in a situation where you're going to be perspirating a lot. It might be a good idea to kind of have some water on hand and preemptively start drinking that water ahead of time.
Very well said. Yes. And so just go drink water. If you're thirsty, please drink water. Don't just wait, and don't drink more coffee. Or if you do, drink more water after that. Just because Rose did ask that, I think I know the answer. Rose asked if there were black specks in the water. This is for our master plumbers. If that was from the pipes, probably from the pipes or the water. But in either way, if there's black specks in your water, you probably want to filter it. Am I about right there?
100%. Black specks probably is from the piping. Could be from the water heater. Could be from a lot of things, but more than likely from the piping. And again, you're going to want to filter that out.
All right. Fantastic. With that, we're going to be finishing up. Remember, please, until 9:30 p.m. tonight, flash sale on waterdropfilter.com. 30% off for orders more than $300 with the code WATER101. Thank you to all of you for joining us. This was so much fun. I got to learn things, which is always a delight. And I think other people got to learn things. With that, I think we bid you all adieu.
Thanks for having us.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.